All right, ladies and gentlemen, Nick Hedrick and Tyler Gallo here today with a very special interview. It's been in the works for a while. Finally had time to get it out, get it cracking. Ladies and gentlemen, Coach Bernard Clark of the Robert Morris football team. Coach, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you having me.
And so we're going to get right into it. So, Gallo, why don't you ask the first question?
Right. So, easy question to start off. How did you get your start in football?
My start in football started when I was talking about coaching or playing.
Playing.
I was 8 years old. I started playing for the Tampa Spartans back in Tampa, Florida, at the boys' club. Coached by some of the best coaches I've been around, obviously, at that time. Great guys. And my mom kind of got me involved along with my father. My father kind of wanted to steer me away from football because he played football, but my mom kind of steered me into it. So at 8 years old, I started playing football.
Awesome. And, being a local guy, you attended the University of Miami. What stood out about Miami over any other school you were looking at?
Well, at the time, probably one thing that stood out about Miami, I don't have brothers. I'm the youngest of 4 kids. I have 3 sisters. When I went down to Miami, it felt like a brotherhood. The camaraderie was unbelievable. And the guys made me feel like they were my older brothers. They took care of me. They watched over me. I always tell people the greatest thing about the University of Miami won 5 national championships, but it was with 3 different coaches. And that's what people fail to understand. That team is what made the University of Miami work the way it did, because you're talking about guys, when I got there, if I did something wrong, it was the players keeping me in line. It wasn't the coaches keeping me in line. So that was the brotherhood that I saw when I went and visited the University of Miami.
Definitely good to have that brotherhood, especially as you get into, untapped waters with your college career. So you played under Jimmy Johnson during your time there. What was it like just under him and the systems and all that?
Well, Coach Johnson was one of those guys. A lot of the coaching that I do now is based on a lot of things that Coach Johnson did. I always say if I had an opportunity to go back to school, I have a degree in business management. But if I had an opportunity to go back to college, I'd probably get a degree in psychology if I knew I was going to be a coach, because that's what Coach Johnson's degree was in psychology. So he was one of those guys you could always go and talk to. He was a player's coach. You could always have a great conversation with. To this day, I'll text him on Father's Day, say Happy Father's Day. He still reaches back to me. When he got inducted into the Hall of Fame, I text him congratulations. He still reaches. So that relationship he had with his players were outstanding.
Right, definitely good to have a coach that sort of just is like a father to the players. So at Miami, you mentioned the national championships, and you were part of 2 teams in '87 and '89. What do you think fueled the Hurricanes' success during those 2 seasons especially?
Exactly what I said. It was the players. It was the guys believing in one another. And every time we went back, and we were independent back then, so it was either a national championship or nothing. There was no opportunity to win a conference championship. And so the thing that drove us was every summer we came back, we wanted to do it. We wanted to win a national championship. And I like to talk about my Miami days sometimes I don't. In this case, I will, because the thing that stood out for me at the University of Miami, when I was there, I got there in '85, I was redshirted. My record was 55-5 with 2 national championships. And that's attributed to great coaches, but also guys that believed in each other, guys that believe that, hey, it's 4th and 1, we're going to stop them. Guys that believe, hey, it's 4th and 1, we're going to get the first, we don't need to put the defense back out here. We're talking about a team that came together. Did we have our fights? Absolutely, we had our fights. There were constant fights on the field. But at the same time, like I said, it was like a brotherhood. Guys believed in one another and believed in what we were doing.
What was that kind of portrayal like, like the Catholic convict Notre Dame Miami thing? What was that kind of media portrayal like for you guys mentally during all of that?
That didn't bother us. The thing about it is, I always tell people, when I was at the University of Miami, Coach Johnson said it's probably one of the things he's most proud about. When Coach Johnson first got there, I think the graduation rate was around 15%. When Coach Johnson left, it was 80%.
Wow.
So the Catholics versus convict thing didn't bother us because we knew what we were doing.
Right.
We knew the things that we were accomplishing off the field. We knew the fact that we bust our behinds. We went to class. Guys with graduation rates went up. So those things were outstanding. So we understood just the way it was. The only thing that bothered me, I've said this several times, I'm just kind of pissed off. It wasn't convicts versus Catholics and not Catholics versus Catholics.
Oh man, that's incredible. That's definitely incredible there. So '88 Orange Bowl. Obviously, people may know what happened in that game, but we'll talk about it a little bit here. So against the Sooners, which were another undefeated team at the time, you started in place of a suspended George Mira and won MVP, recording 14 total tackles. How did you get geared up to go into that game, not knowing you're going to start, and then how to getting that award fee?
Well, the great thing about it is George Mira. This one thing is correct. So no, not a problem. I just want to correct his name. I don't want George to get upset with me. So it's one of those situations where I was always prepared. The one thing that we believed in the University of Miami, there was a sign that went from the training room to the locker room that Coach Johnson had put up. What that sign said was, preparation plus opportunity equals success. Every day I walked from the training room to the locker room, I read that, and it was drilled in my head. So when the opportunity came for me, I knew I had already prepared myself to be successful. And my teammates believed in me. Like I said, when I went down there, that's the thing that was important, is that brotherhood. So when I got my opportunity to play, they were like, hey, we're not going to miss a beat. We're going to keep rolling the way this thing keeps rolling, because that's how we believe with everyone on the field. You know, a lot of people don't understand. The year before that, Vinny Testaverde, who was a Heisman Trophy winner, he went down before our final game of the year against East Carolina. Jeff Torretta, Gino's older brother, stepped right in, and we blasted East Carolina. So it's a situation where guys believed in the guys next to them. So my teammates believed in me, the coaches believed in me, and so that's all I needed. I'll never forget a crazy story. I lost my father in 2019. Everybody knows it. But I'll never forget, right before that game, I walked out and I'm on the sideline, and my father walks up to me. He said, "Let me talk to you." So I go up to him and say, "How's it going, Dad?" He's like, "I've been reading in the paper all week long about you're going to do this, you're going to do that." He said, "You don't have to prove anything to anyone. Your teammates and your coaches believe in you, or you wouldn't be starting. So stop acting like you have to prove something to anybody. The only people that you have to show that you're capable of doing this are your teammates and your coaches, and we know you can do it." So that kind of gave me some encouragement. So that's what helped me out.
And did having that encouragement from both your coaches and your teammates sort of fuel you in that game as well?
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. You won't worry about making a mistake when your teammates believe in you from the point you're in warm-up and the guys are, "Hey, let's get it done." Because we're playing for the national championships. If you're not going to get it done, next man up. And that's how we look at it. So it's one of those situations where you either get it done, or they're going to bring the linebacker off the bench and he's going to get it done. So you got to make sure you're ready for that situation. But again, my teammates and the coaches prepared me for that.
Right, and so you get drafted by Cincinnati in the third round of the 1990 NFL draft. Obviously, it's probably a kind of normal question, but I mean, what's that feeling like? And can you actually put that into words, hearing your name get called?
It was a little different back then, because remember we had 12 rounds, and I was at home in Tampa, Florida. And the thing that sticks out to me was I asked my mother and father, I said, "Please don't have anyone to the house. I don't know what round I'm going in. I don't know if I'm going to get drafted, so please don't." And so the night before, I go and stay at a hotel just to kind of clear my mind. And I get home, and it's like 200 people in the house. So the funny thing about it is, everybody keeps asking me, "They haven't called your name, they haven't called your name." I literally go in my room, and I go to sleep. I lock my door, and I go to sleep at my mom and dad's house, and I'm knocked out. And next thing I know, my sister's busted the door. She's saying the Cincinnati Bengals were on the phone. And so I'm like, "Hey, great." And I remember Sam Weiss, God bless the day, Sam Weiss is no longer with us. And Sam's like, "Hey, the Cincinnati Bengals are going to pick you up in the third round." You're excited. So I'm like excited about that. Couldn't be more excited about that. So yeah, it was definitely an exciting time. It was something that you worked for basically since I was 8 years old. You know, it's a dream I think most people have to start playing the game of football, and now it's coming to fruition. And it was outstanding.
Yeah, and you shortly made your NFL debut, that season. Once again, how did that feel for you?
I'll tell you a crazy story, because we played our first preseason game in Tampa against the Tampa Bay Bucks. So I come out to signs all over the Tampa Bay Stadium because I'm from Tampa. "We love you, Bernard," so on and so forth. I run down on kickoff and get knocked out cold. I get laid out cold. And I'm on one knee on the ground, and I'm shaking my head. I'm like, "You just got knocked out in Tampa. This is your hometown. How does that happen?" So go to the sideline. Obviously, nowadays, they would have taken me out of the game because of concussion protocol. But back then, they took me to the sideline. How many fingers? You got 5 fingers up. You got 4 fingers and 1 thumb. It's Saturday. I'm in Tampa. I need to get back on the field. I can't go out like that. So I go back in the game, and I end up having a pretty good, decent game. And it was great. It was a great feeling, to be able to go back in the game and play in front of people that you played in front of all of your life.
Yeah, definitely awesome to have that sort of hometown feel, even though you're on the road. So that season, the Bengals actually had a really good year, and they made the playoffs, and you got to play in that divisional game against the Raiders. What was that atmosphere, even being on the road, like?
It was great. It was an absolutely great atmosphere. As a matter of fact, the crazy part about it is my teammate, Kevin Walker, he's the one that injured Bo Jackson. That was the game that Bo Jackson, career was ended because it was a fluke accident. Actually, Bo Jackson was running, and he dove to make a tackle, and just so happened he grabbed Bo Jackson's back leg as opposed to grabbing both his legs. And that's how his hip came up the way it did. So it was weird watching it happen in front of you. You didn't know what had happened, but it literally happened on the sideline at the time, and I was on the sideline watching it. But playing the playoffs and be a part of that, you're thinking like you thought in college. I've already won 2 national championships. So it's an opportunity. I'm going to the playoffs my first year. Hey, this thing is going to keep rolling. But obviously it didn't keep rolling in Cincinnati. So it's just one of those weird situations where you thought it would keep happening the way it was happening. and you say, hey, I'm used to winning, so it's not a big deal. But it didn't continue that way.
Right, and so moving forward, 1991 was a bit different. You started in Cincinnati, and then you got waived and went to Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Was that, and then back to Cincinnati later in the season? Was that season mentally tough, or was it sort of just I'm going to play on whatever team I'm on?
Well, I was going to play whatever team I was on at the time. It was mentally tough because, again, you work and you work and you work and you reach that level of playing at the highest level, and you say to yourself, I need to do what I need to do to get things going, and it's not happening for you. So that's kind of mentally tough for you, but it's a situation where, I'm here, let me play, and then I get it settled in Seattle for 3 weeks, and the next thing you know, I'm back in Cincinnati. So it's a weird situation. That's just how the weird game of football goes.
And speaking of the weird way football goes, you go to the Orlando Predators of the AFL. What's that jump to arena football like? I know there's different rules there. I know when I was watching, when it got really popular for those couple of years in the early 2000s, they had like a linebacker box and all this stuff. So, I mean, what was that like jumping to the arena football?
Well, I always tell our guys, I played 2 years in the NFL. The reason I played 2 and didn't play 10, I was not a student of the game. Ever since I was little, I've always been one of the biggest. I was 6'2", 240 pounds. Ran a low 4.7, high 4.6, and I was able to hit. That had carried me through high school. That had carried me through college, and so I got to the NFL and thought it could carry me through that. But obviously it couldn't, because there's a lot of guys your size and your weight. But what distinguishes you, makes you different from those guys? What made me different was I didn't study film. I didn't do the things I was supposed to do. I enjoyed the NFL a little bit more than I should have enjoyed the NFL. So I didn't have a continuous career. I didn't have a career that's memorable. I made it. A lot of guys don't make it, and I'm excited about that. But a lot of times I have regrets because I didn't dedicate myself the way I was supposed to dedicate myself. The great thing about arena football was it was fun again. and the weird thing, I'll tell you the weird thing about that, it was like I played one way. I didn't play both ways. I was that guy that they always had 2 guys on defense that played just one way and 2 guys on offense that just played one way. I played one way, and I was averaging probably about 10 to 13 tackles a game because you couldn't run the ball. I'm like, There's no way you'll be able to run the ball. I would literally tell other teams, why are you trying to run the ball on us? You're not going. It's 29 yards. I'm used to covering 50 yards. There's no way you can run the ball. So it's constantly, you got to make tackles by breaking on the pass. So I got better at breaking on the pass. So a lot of those things. I enjoyed arena football. I wish I would have had an opportunity to get back to the NFL because what I started doing in arena football was becoming a student of the game. But I just never got that opportunity, which is fine. I don't have any regrets. I'm not pissed off at the NFL or anything like that. I had a great opportunity to play in the NFL, but it's a situation that didn't work out. And so that's how it happens sometimes.
And so then your coaching career kind of starts. You work with some high schools, then James Madison and Liberty, working with some specific defensive groups on defense. I mean, what did you take away from those experiences, and how did it help you start growing as a coach?
Well, let me just say this first. Coaching is not something I wanted to do. It's not a situation I ever thought I'd be in. I never thought I'd be a coach. Actually, when I was cut by the Dallas Cowboys, played arena football, and I went into selling cars. I was a car salesman for about 5 years before I got into coaching. My first coaching job at James Madison, restricted earnings coach, I was 32 years old. Had no idea what I wanted to do. I always tell people this. In May of '96, I gave my life to Christ, so I became a believer. I kind of asked God to guide me in the direction He wanted me to go in, and He guided me back towards football. And so I started coaching in Lakeland at Santa Fe Catholic High School, and I fell in love with it. Because again, not being a student of the game, but now as a coach, I'm studying film. I'm studying playbooks. All those things are new to me because I never really did them the way I was supposed to do them. When I say not a student of the game, I don't want people to think that I didn't know what I was supposed to do on the field. I knew what I was supposed to do. But when you're a student of the game, you also know what the offense is doing. You also know what the guys next to you are doing. So that's what I mean. I don't want people to think I didn't know what I was doing. I did. But I became a student of the game when I became a coach because I really started locking myself in my office and buckling down and doing these things. But I always say this. I didn't get into coaching because I wanted to coach football. I got into coaching, like I told you earlier, Coach Johnson, he's a psychology major. I got into coaching because of young men. And ever since I got into this, and my mantra has been, that's been my mantra since I've gotten here, I'm using football as a process to help produce better men, better husbands, and better fathers. Because football has molded me into the man that I am today. And so that gave me a great opportunity to do that with other young men, helping them learn things that are important. Because when you're on a football field, your teammates have to trust you. They have to believe in you. You have to be disciplined. All the things you need in life to be a better man, a better husband, and a better father. So that's why I got into football. So when I got into it, I wanted to make sure that my door was always open so they can come and talk to me, like I did with Coach Johnson, like I did with Coach Wanstead, like I did with Coach Davis. And I can go on and on. All the coaches you're seeing right now, they're like, wow, he coached those guys. Yeah, Tommy Tuberville and Ed Ogeron. All those guys were at the University of Miami when I was there. And all those guys were easy to go and talk to. So I wanted to be that kind of coach, but wanted even more. Come and talk to me about anything. You want to come laugh with me? You want to come cry with me? You want to come pray with me? Whatever you want to do, my door is always open. And now, some guys take full advantage. They come and sit in my office with me all the time. So that's why I got into coaching, and that's why I enjoy coaching so much. But yeah, it started out at James Madison. Then I went to Liberty University. Then I went to FIU. Then I went to USF. Then I went back to FIU. Then I went to Hampton University. Then I went to Pitt. Then I went to Colorado State. Then I went back to Hampton. And I went to Albany. And then now I'm here, head coach at Robert Morris University. And it's been a great journey. And the whole time, my wife Tammy's been there with me. And she's a trooper. She's a real trooper. There have been times where I've been like, oh, this is frustrating. This is frustrating. After we got fired from Pitt in 2010, after winning the Big East Championship and we got fired, it was tough because it's like, wait a minute. The whole point of this is winning. The whole point of this is guys graduating from college. You're doing all the right things. How do you get fired doing the right things? So it was a tough situation to me. I told my wife, I said, I'm kind of sick of this. And she looked at me and she's like, you're a coach. That's what you do. You're a football coach. That's your job. You help young men develop. And so you're going to continue to do it. She told me, I'll take up the slack, whatever it is, financially. If you don't get a job a year from now, I'll work harder. But you're going to be a coach. And, she's always been there for me. So it's been great.
Wow, that's incredible. And just as you jumped around to all those jobs, is it tough on you mentally? We talk about players in leagues getting cut and traded and all that. But as a coach jumping from job to job, was that something you wanted to do, keep moving to different schools, or was that mostly just the opportunity running its course and you had to find another?
It was both. It was some places I was let go, and it was some places where it was just opportunity for me.
Right.
It doesn't bother me. Again, like I said, my wife's a trooper. The great thing about it, she's a flight attendant. So it makes it even easier for her to make those moves. So it's a situation where it's a part of the job. If you want to excel at this position, you're going to have to make some jumps to places. Who'd ever thought I'd be in Pittsburgh or Moon Township? Who'd ever thought I'd be in Colorado? But those are places that God allowed me to go to broaden my horizon, to be around more people, to help develop more young men, not just physically, but also mentally and spiritually. So those are the opportunities that have come to me. So I've always taken full advantage of it. And every place I've gone, I've brought something from it. I've learned something from that. Whether it's a situation that I thought was a bad situation where we got fired, we weren't very good, or a great situation where we're doing all the right things. So you learn something everywhere you go.
Right. And every time I look at you, I go, this guy's got to be thinking, why am I here when I could be in Florida and there's a foot of snow on the ground?
Trust me.
But,
I think about that all the time. I tell people all the time, I love Pittsburgh. I love the area. You guys love sports here. I mean, you guys are a sports place here. I mean, it's outstanding the way the sports are. But you guys know, and I know, it is gloomy out there. It is dark out there. I mean, it's just crazy. It's not just cold, but when it's dark and cold, that's where the problem comes
Right.
in. Not so much the cold. The cold bothers you, but not as much as the dark bothers you. And it's a little tough when I go home for Christmas and it's 80. So, so it's a tough situation.
Right. And you mentioned your time at Albany. You had the 9th-ranked defense in the FCS while you were there. And I think a common theme with college football now is, defense is a dying breed there. It's a bunch of high shootout games.
Mm-hmm.
What's it like kind of building a team that's very defensively sound in this generation of college football?
Well, it's a tougher situation because you got to understand there are a lot of situations where offenses are doing this, offenses are doing that, so you got to adapt to it. To me, it always goes back to one thing: basic fundamentals. As long as you're having basic fundamentals in your defense, they can be exciting. This game, no matter how elaborate it may get, it's going to be about two things: tackling and running. Plain and simple. I don't care how exciting you get. I don't care how many. If you can't run and tackle, you're not going to win games on defense. And if you can't run the ball and get the ball downfield, you're not going to win games on offense. So in order to build a great defense, you just got to make sure the guys believe in themselves. It's got to be fundamentally sound. It's got to be technically sound. You got to make sure your run fits where they're supposed to be at. You got to make sure guys know what they're supposed to do. But more importantly, you have to tackle. You have to tackle.
Right, and RMU's defense really stepped up last year. On the topic of defense, players like Mason Gray, who actually came from Albany.
Mm-hmm.
What allowed that defensive turnaround here in such a short amount of time?
Coach Plunges did an outstanding job. The first year he was here, and it's weird. Him and I talk a lot. He said when he first got here, he was trying to do the defense that he thought I would like when he was first year. Well, he went back and he self-scouted himself last year. He watched a lot of the things that we did in 2018 that he didn't like. So he came back and he said what I've always said. Coach Clark's going to fire me. He's going to fire me with my bullets and my gun. I'm not going to try to shoot his bullets out of my gun. So, and that's what he believed in. So he went back and he does. Coach Plunges blitzes a lot more than I would ever blitz because I'm just not a big blitzer. I'm more base defense, has to be your best defense. He believes in that also, but he also believes that with us, the talent that we have, what he did a great job of, the talent that we have and the personnel that we had, he developed a better defense for what we had and the guys that we had, and that's why we were successful.
And you lost some key players this season, Mason Gray, Matthew Gonzalez, a few others. How do you replace them, especially coming off a season that was the best in a decade for a team? How do you have a team with that many good players, named all NEC teams? How do you bounce back in a new conference without some of those guys?
It's going to be tough, but like I said, the great thing about Coach Plunges and Coach LaBarra is they do what's based on our personnel. The key thing when it comes to winning football games, you have to do what's best for your personnel. Like a lot of people like the fast-paced offense. Well, sometimes that hurts your defense because if you guys aren't stopping anybody, but you keep going out there as an offense and you keep having 2-minute drives where you're scoring a touchdown or 2-minute drives where you're not scoring a touchdown, the defense is still back out on the field after they just had a 12-play drive. So we work within our personnel, and Coach LaBarra does a great job with the personnel that we have. So, yeah, we had Matthew Gonzalez last year, but this year we think we got a few taller receivers, or bigger receivers. We got a George Martin who now has 2 years under his belt as opposed to just 1 year. So we have the guys in place where we need to be at. We got a transfer tight end from Bucknell, and Marcus is doing a great job. We got a transfer wide receiver from Rutgers. And Davon's doing a good job. We got some other transfer guys. We got some freshmen that may come in and help us. That's probably the greatest thing about this COVID situation is that this spring we can play our freshmen, and it's just like a redshirt year for them. So it's like they're scrimmaging.
Right.
And so they still get their fifth year back. So we got, a young freshman by the name of James Westry, who's a wide receiver we think going to be pretty good at. We got a transfer from Unique State named Dre Hicks. And we still got Elijah Jackson. So we still got some guys that can play some football. We still got Soupy on defense. We still got Buzz on defense. We still got some guys. We still got Jacob White on defense. We still got Taven Harville. We still got some guys in place that can get things done. And probably the most solid group is our offensive line. We got Eric McAllister, Trevor Hicks, Buster Ramelli. We got those guys back who've been there. Dylan Young. Those guys have played a lot of snaps for us on the offensive line. So we have a great chance of just playing hard. The thing we have to do in the conference that we're going into, we have to compete. We have to make sure we're competing hard, we're getting after it. And if we're competing, we can win football games. But if we're not competing, we can't win football games. And like I said, Coach Plunges and Coach LaBarra have done a great job personnel-wise.
I just want to scale back because you touched on it earlier to the better men, better husbands, better fathers mantra. I feel like a lot of coaches would try to be like, you're going to come here and we're going to win together and that's that. But obviously RMU is not Alabama.
Right.
So, I mean, what results have you seen from that approach, kind of building that thought process into recruits that not only you're going to get to play here and learn the game of football, but also become a better person on and off the field?
Well, the experience has been exactly what you guys have had when we talk to our guys about that, because now they're in college and they're experiencing college. They know what college is all about. You guys know the job placement rate here is unbelievable. So that's something we sell to our guys. The thing we tell our guys is this: look, when we're recruiting you, we're not going to promise you're going to get a scholarship if you're a walk-on. If you're a partial scholarship guy, we're not going to promise you're going to get a full scholarship. We're not going to promise you're going to start. We're not going to promise you're going to play. Only thing that we're going to promise you, if you do what we ask you to do, you're going to graduate from college. And you're going to play some great football and have a good time. And once guys come in with that mindset, look, do they want to go to the NFL? I think everybody that plays this game, I don't care if it's Division III, Division II, everybody that plays this game would love to have an opportunity to play this game at the highest level. So, yes, they all have those aspirations. And I all want them, if that's your plan A, hey, let's push it as much as we can. Stick with that plan A. Now, when that plan A doesn't work out, let's get another plan A. I don't believe in plan Bs. I believe in only plan A's because that's what you're fighting to get there. When you think about plan A, plan B, plan C, you're not really putting all your efforts into that plan A. So let's do what we need to do. But the first thing you need to do is let's graduate from college, because if you're not going to class, you can't even play here. So don't even worry about playing at the next level. So we're trying to encourage our guys to understand what life is all about. When we talk about better men, better husbands, and better fathers, when they first get here, freshmen, the first thing we want to talk to them about is your progress towards your degree. This is how I go about getting my progress towards my degree. Second thing is my interaction with the police. Third thing is how do I want to treat women. So we're getting a basis of what's important, how to do an email, how to do this. And every year, as they're here, we're helping them develop in a lot of different ways. I don't know, do you guys know how to grocery shop?
I walk down the aisle, and if I'm shopping hungry, I throw whatever looks
I
good
know
in
my
there. That's
hometown
about
grocery
it.
store pretty well because I worked Instacart there. But I mean, other than that,
You see what I'm saying? So those are the things we're teaching our guys. Teaching them as they get older. Do you know how to buy a car? Do you know how to buy a house? So we talk about better men, better husbands, and better fathers, and we start showing them those things, and they're realizing they're not just things you can learn for football. They're things you can learn for life. So those are things that are important. So that's how we go about selling our program. And on top of that, do you have an opportunity to play in the NFL? I think everybody has an opportunity.
Absolutely.
And the other great thing about Robert Morris University, the GM for the Pittsburgh Steelers went to school here. So, so that's the situation where Kevin Colbert, he comes to some of the games. He comes and checks out some of the games. So you never know. If you're doing just enough when Kevin's at a game, hey, you never know what can happen. So I think everybody has an opportunity. It's just a matter if it's going to happen or not.
So yeah, and that mantra definitely parlayed into success last season, first winning season in 11 years for RMU. How much of a factor did that turnaround season last year play into moving into the new conference?
I'm not sure. That's probably a Chris King question. So I didn't have any hand in moving to the new conference. I'm glad we're here. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for us to play in the Big South, but at the same time, that's probably a Chris King question. That's not really a question for me.
So we'll go off of it. We'll come up with a new one. I mean, we talked a little bit about how the NEC teams, a lot of them are kind of far. Obviously, there's some close ones like Duquesne for football and St. Francis, but these are some pretty long road trips you're going to have to take this season. What's that kind of mentality like, knowing that when you're not home, you're pretty far away from home?
I don't think it really bothers us. I think it's a competition. We feel like the competition may be a little bit. Don't get me wrong. NEC has some great competition. They have some great guys. And the fact that we're not playing Duquesne this year kind of bothers all of us. Because we kind of like
Twitter was very upset about that the other day.
We want to get that rivalry back going. It's something we love to have, back going, because that's something we definitely don't want to stop, because it's been a tradition for so many years. It's kind of like when they stopped West Virginia and Pitt. People weren't real happy about that. So we want to continue to play Duquesne. So we're hoping things get worked out that can get taken care of. But are they far away? Yes. But they're also better competition. Should I say, in a situation where, to me, I like the South because you get out of some of this cold weather. So it's a situation where our guys are excited about it. They feel like, you're going from a conference that has a certain number of scholarships going to another number of scholarships. So there are a lot of things there are pluses for us as a coaching staff and pluses for us as a team. So I think our guys are more excited about that. And like I said, we were talking earlier, they have a team like Monmouth, Kennesaw State, Campbell. Those teams are usually in the top 25 when you start dealing with it. And now they're adding North Carolina A&T. They're adding Hampton. I mean, they got some pretty good teams in there. So the schedule's going to be pretty good, and we're going to play against some tough competition. So our guys are more excited about that than actual trips and stuff like that. And the furthest trips, the ones that really get you, North Alabama, Kennesaw, and Charleston Southern. The rest of them aren't that bad, but those are the ones that are pretty far out there.
Right, yeah, and you mentioned the schedule, with such a short one this year, what challenges do you consider to be the biggest, especially, you mentioned the top 25 teams?
The first one is going to be the biggest. James Madison University, and you guys were here when that debacle happened to us. When we first got here our first year, we got slammed 73-7. I'll never forget that score. But the thing that probably bothered me about the score, it wasn't so much that James Madison was just a better team than we were, plain and simple. They were a better team than we were. But we didn't compete. And that's probably what bothered me more than anything else. I have a rule, so you guys get a kick out of this. I have a rule. The 3 rules that we have, like you guys have heard them before: be on time, no cell phones, I don't want to hear the N-word. Okay? And if I hear the N-word, the guy that says it has 10 push-ups. Well, on the flip side of that, like I told you guys, I gave my life to Christ. I don't like using profanity. It really bothers me. I don't think it's necessary. So if I use profanity, I have to do 100 yards of up downs. So we're playing James Madison. Obviously, we're getting smashed. We're absolutely getting smashed. We go in at halftime, and I lose it. I got 1,800 yards of up downs on Sunday. So just to give you an idea how tough that game was for us, not only physically but also mentally, and how much it bothered me that we didn't compete when we were capable of competing. So as we go into this game, the thing that's most important is we got to tell our guys, hey, we got to compete. We got to compete.
Do you think that the hurricane impacted that at all? That's always something I would have.
It did, but it didn't. It
Right.
impacted it because we only had one day of practice,
Right.
and they had just played a game against a tough opponent. So it impacted in that sense that we only had one day of practice, but it didn't impact in the fact that the first play of the game, they run out on kickoff and knock our return guy out of his shoes. So I don't think that had anything to do with that had anything to do with the hurricane.
So my next question for you would be, you talked a bit about how, players are excited. It's like a redshirt year for the freshmen, basically. But if memory does serve me correct, you were supposed to join the Big South next season in the NEC. This season, you're going to play a final season in that
Right.
conference. So,
Right.
I mean, mentally just preparing for this season, has it been hard on the players with, the way things have changed?
I think they're kind of chomping at the bits, to be totally honest with you. Mentally, they just want to play right now. They're tired of, going against one another. They're ready to get on the field. They're ready to compete. I don't really think fans even matter right now. I think they just want to compete against another uniform other than their own uniform. So they're just excited about this season. And we're getting things prepared right now for them.
Right. And just going forward, every RMU team is basically playing in a new conference this year.
Mm-hmm.
You already mentioned the tough competition that you will have to face up against this season. What do you hope to take away from this first season in the Big South?
Competing. How we're going to compete, how we're going to stand up against them. The great thing about this spring season is we get a preview going against Kennesaw, going against Charleston Southern, going against guys. We're only playing 5 games, going against Gardner-Webb, and we got Monmouth. So we got two of the top teams that we have in our conference. So it's going to be great to see how we're going to stack up because when the fall comes, we got the rest of the conference to go through. So it's going to give us a great idea of how far we need to go or how close we are and how much we're competing. So that's the thing that's exciting right now.
Right. And I know the season's close and it's not like basketball where you can be like, oh, you're going to play on Tuesday now. Good luck. But is there any chance any non-conference games get added at this late of a stage in the season?
Well, there is one I hope gets added. And we just talked about it earlier. I just don't know if it's going to happen.
Absolutely.
I would love for the Duquesne to get added. And I don't know if they will. And again, I'm not upset with anybody from Duquesne. I don't want them to think I'm upset with them that we're not playing. It's just something that happens.
Mm-hmm.
But if we could pick them up and play in the game, that'd be great.
Right. And do you have anything else?
Well, yeah, it was just, what do you think the one thing you're most excited for, especially in the new conference and the new season, just getting the season underway?
I think the thing we're excited for, again, we want to watch how our guys are competing. I know I keep saying that. I sound like a broken record, but that's probably the one thing I'm excited about. I want to see our guys compete in this new conference. I want to see that they know, hey, you can win. And I want them to understand they can win the game and continue to develop, better men, better husbands, and better fathers. And that's what they're doing on the field. So just want to compete. Want to see how our coaches compete. Because coaches want to match wits also. They want to make sure that they're matching against the offense coordinator, defense coordinator, O-line coach, D-line coach. Coaches are just as competitive as the players. We just want to see how we're competing against this new conference.
Coach Clark, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.